What's good, AC Gang? It's your boy AJ.
It's your girl Candy.
It's your girl Michelle.
And we are back with another
banger.
Hey.
She going Tommy with us.
Uh-huh.
Alright, who we doing today, baby?
Oh, I don't know how this is talking about. The baby took a second to process. Alright, y'all. So today we're doing My Story Animated. That's the name of the person.
Somebody new.
Yeah, to us.
The title really like caught
They got like 5 million subscribers. I mean, he ain't new. But anyways, it's called Mom Raised Me to Be a Gold Digger, and I Live to Regret It. Alright, so let's get it.
Let's go.
My family was so perfect. You could have put us on a Christmas card.
Cat.
A big, beautiful house, every luxury in the world, and 2 loving parents. Until the day when I was in the 9th grade. My parents were hosting one of their grand Christmas parties when suddenly a group of men from the FBI barged in. One of them said, "You're under arrest for fraud," as they walked straight up to Dad. He screamed in protest as he was dragged away. Turns out, Dad had invested in a business venture with his friend, and it was a complete scam. The friend had run away with so many people's money, including Dad's, while he was in prison. I watched him in suits.
We from New York, so we know all about scams.
Yeah.
Wait, but I'm like, is this a true story?
Somebody asks if you had a car or something and try to make some money, say, I'm good, bro.
A friend come to you asking, y'all gotta go opposition for us. I'm like, yeah, let me see how you do first and come back to me.
Exactly.
Come by every day to take away all our things. They let us keep
They
the
got
house
repossessed.
though. Mom and I would snuggle up in sleeping bags in front of the fireplace in the big, empty living room. When Dad was released on bail after a few months, I thought things would start to get better. But Dad wasn't a pleasant man without money. Mom had started working as a maid, and when Dad got back, he turned up his nose at her and said, "Yuck, you clean people's bathrooms now?" He refused to do anything himself except wine. I was forced to leave my fancy private school, of course, but he wouldn't even send me to a public one. He said, "I'm not spending any money on your education. If you were a boy, you would at least have some use. I'm going to get you married off as soon as I can."
No freaking way.
Dad walked in looking happier than he had in ages.
That's crazy.
I would call up that judge and say, you can take him back now because he rude.
That's crazy.
No, repossess him. Forget the other stuff. That's ridiculous.
Carrying takeaway food bags from my favorite sushi place. Mom glared at him and said, "What's that? The money I gave you was for a month's worth of groceries." Dad snapped at her. "Be quiet, woman. We have guests coming over in an hour. Can you try to look less like a miserable beggar, please?" Dave and Jenna, who were friends of my dad, came in with their son Jason, and they looked at us with pity as they sat down. Most of Dad's friends had disappeared as fast as his money had, but I've always liked these two. Just as they were leaving, Dave turned to Dad and handed him some money. He said, "You shouldn't have to spend so much on dinner. Let us make it up to you." Dad looked furious. He shouted, "How dare you insult me like this? Get out of my house." I'm sorry to say, we could do with the money. But Dad carried on screaming at our guests to leave, and they hurried away. He turned to me and said, "I can't believe I wanted you to marry that jerk's son." Mom said, annoyed, "She's too young to be thinking about marriage." Dad said it was never too late to be thinking about it, and that my only chance of doing well in the world was to marry someone rich. Suddenly, Mom rose from the table and said nastily, "Well, I married a rich man, and look where I am now." She flung the table aside and walked out of the room. A few days later, we heard a loud bang on our door. When Dad opened it, some men walked in and flashed a piece of paper in his face, saying the house had been seized and we would have to leave. We couldn't believe it. We were homeless. We packed our few belongings and went to the nearest homeless shelter. Dad looked in disgust at the watery soup served for dinner. He wouldn't lie down on the beds either because he was sure they were full of bed bugs. In the morning, as Mom was heading out for work, a woman drove up to the entrance of the shelter in her flashy red convertible and honked loudly. Dad came running out and, to our shock, jumped into the car and said, "Hey babe, I missed you." I realized that it was his former secretary. He looked back at us and said, "This place is just too filthy for me. I'll be staying with the man from now on." And they drove off while Mom screamed at him and called him all sorts of names. Mom turned to me and said, "I knew he was cheating on me. Now that Mr. Good for Nothing is gone, I have to tell you something." She told me that she had a private stash of money saved up, and we could use it to get a small apartment for ourselves. And she would send me to school
Smart.
too. Well, all we could afford was a dingy one.
It don't matter.
It was
Yeah, that's the way to live.
shelter. I started looking up public schools in the area. My mom thrust a brochure in my hand for a really fancy private school. I was surprised. Mom said she would keep doing her cleaning job. I want you to hang out with the right kind of people and meet a nice guy. That meant rich, of course. It sounded really shallow, but I couldn't blame her. She'd gone from
She ain't nothing but a gold digger.
to a maid. I got off the bus 2 blocks away and walked to my new school for New York's elite. I took 2 steps inside and tripped over something. I quickly got up, hoping no one had noticed.
They noticed.
I heard someone say. I turned around to see the most gorgeous boy smiling warmly at me. He introduced himself as Eli. Just then,
Eli.
a loud sports car sped into the parking lot, drowning out his voice. A really good-looking boy hopped out and was instantly surrounded by other students. Now that looked like someone I should be dating.
Oh boy, she just like her father.
And Mom would be so happy. But that annoying Eli wouldn't leave me alone. I could tell he was totally into me. At lunch, Logan, the hot guy, came over to me. With a grin, he said, "I don't believe we've met. A pretty girl like you shouldn't be sitting alone." Yes! I batted my eyelashes. But then I heard Eli's annoying voice. "Let's go to the library, Mia." You go ahead. I think I'm going to stay here for a bit," I said, giving Logan a flirty smile. Eli walked away quietly. Soon enough, we were joined by Logan's minions, and before I knew it, I had become part of his exclusive circle. This was my ticket to becoming rich! I started hanging out more and more with Logan and his friends, but Eli wasn't happy about it. And he truly hated Logan.
Oh, that was Eli right there.
Words I'm saying
And
exactly
he
the
was
same.
jealous of Logan. One day, Logan announced that he was going to throw a huge party at his house next month. Everyone was waiting anxiously to see who would be on the guest list. I was on it. When I told Eli excitedly, he suddenly lost his cool and said, "I don't know what you see in that guy. Are you in love with him?" I felt annoyed by his question, but I just smiled at him and denied it. He looked a little relieved. Then he took my hand and said, "Mia, I'm falling for you. Say you'll go out with me."
Why?
I had my sights set on Logan, but, well, Eli was pretty rich too, and he really adored me. He pulled me in for a kiss, and I kissed him back. We were officially dating now. Logan didn't look too happy seeing us going around holding hands. The other person who wasn't too happy was my mother. At first, she was excited to hear I was going out with one of the boys from school, but she went with me to his house one day to drop me off and looked really disappointed. She exclaimed, "That's their house? It looks like a cottage. And their car is a pretty old Mercedes.
Nice
What
house.
happened to the boy with the Ferrari?" A few days before the party, Eli texted me to come to his place in the evening. His mom told me he was in the backyard.
I'm
My
sorry.
eyes widened.
I just thought the mom was cool.
Right. That's one that like.
She's like the father. He may be worse. She's the worst, but she ain't good.
At least she ain't leave the daughter.
It's the whole setup.
She teaches her
We
good
had a
things.
wonderful dinner and danced under the stars. Suddenly, Eli took my hand and slipped a beautiful ring on my finger. Wait, what? Had this guy just proposed to me?
Right.
And not even waited for me to say yes?
Exactly.
He smiled and said, "It's a promise ring.
Oh.
Maybe you'll marry me one day when we're older." It was kind of hard to say no at this point, and Eli was so sweet. I smiled and nodded. When I reached Logan's place for the party, my jaw dropped. It was the biggest mansion I'd ever seen. Logan was outside greeting all his guests. He looked really happy to see me. His parents are away, and he gave us a tour of the house. I was having a hard time not looking completely awestruck. Logan was so much richer than I thought. Outside by the pool, while everyone was dancing, Logan came up to me and whispered in my ear that I looked really pretty tonight. Before I knew it, he was pulling me in for a kiss. I was about to pull away, but then I thought, he's so much richer than Eli, and I kissed him back. It was totally harmless anyway. The next day at school, Eli seemed to be in a really bad mood. He wouldn't even look at me. I caught up with him and asked what the matter was. He turned to me coldly.
Slap.
It's I'm
Imagine.
He took his phone out and showed me some Instagram posts. I stared at them, horrified. Someone from the
Can't
party
deny that.
had taken pictures of me and Logan kissing. And Logan was the one who posted them. Eli, I started, but he walked off before I could say another word. I ran to the girls' bathroom and burst into tears.
You should.
I knew I had just lost my best friend. Logan hadn't come to school that day, and I headed straight to his place in the afternoon to confront him. He had no right to post pictures of me
I'm
without my
in his
permission.
house.
I rang the bell loudly several times, and a well-dressed woman answered the door looking annoyed. I didn't know his parents were back already. She said coldly, "What do you want?" I said hesitantly, hi. I'm Logan's friend, Mia. I'm here to see him." She rolled her eyes and said, "No one by that name lives here.
I knew
Goodbye."
it.
Then she slammed the door in my face. I was shocked. How was this possible? The next day, when he turned up at school, Logan greeted me with a grin and planted a big kiss on my lips. I saw Eli looking at us before walking away. My heart sank. I decided not to confront Logan right away, so I pretended everything was okay. Later, while I was hanging out with Logan and his friends during lunch break, I heard an all too familiar voice. It was Dad. Dad said, "Well, well, well. Haven't you become all fancy again? What are you doing here, Dad?" I hissed. "I want to know what you're doing, Mia," he shouted. "Where are you getting the money for the school? Have you moved out of the homeless shelter? I've left Amanda and I'm ready to move in."
What?
Logan let go of my hand abruptly and looked at me disgusted. "Ew, you live in a homeless shelter? I can't believe I kissed you." I could feel everybody's eyes on me and wonder.
Oh, you don't know where you say you live.
Exactly.
Eli's face in the crowd. He looked shocked, but also like he felt sorry for me. A couple of school guards started pulling my father away.
He's getting taken
He
away.
shouted, "I'll find you and your mother, Mia. I want my share of the money." I ran away from there as soon as I
He's
could.
trash.
Mom was furious that Dad had ruined everything for me. She screamed, "That man can't stop ruining our lives."
So what?
She said,
It's
She
strange.
decided there was no
What's that
place to
man?
go to that school.
Oh, I heard what you heard too.
You're poor. I'll find another school. Feeling really sad, I went to school briefly the next day to clear out my locker. I could hear people whispering around me and tried to leave as soon as possible. Just as I was leaving, I saw Logan heading out too. I decided to follow him and ask him why he had ruined everything by posting my pictures. He led me straight to the mansion he'd had the party at.
He probably worked
What was
there.
going on? I was just going to ask him. I peeked over the wall and froze on the spot. There was Logan, wearing gardener's clothes and mowing the lawn. A woman who looked just like him came over to kiss him on the cheek and
mother.
headed inside with cleaning supplies. Just then, Logan spotted my head over the wall and turned pale. He slowly walked out of the gate towards me. Almost crying, he begged, "Oh, please don't tell anyone. It'll ruin me." He went on to explain that he and his mom worked here. The owners were really nice and were paying for the school since his dad had left.
Really
him a few
nice.
years
They
ago.
look grumpy as
They'd
heck.
sometimes even get their chauffeur to pick him up and drop him off. And his real name was Joe. I said, "I'll keep your secret, Joe.
Joe's always
You
having
better
some
start treating the
secret.
people around you a little better. And take my pictures off your Instagram, jerk." Mom was shocked to find out that Logan was so poor. She said, "Maybe you should just be friends with Eli again. At least they have their own house and car." That was it, I shouted. "I've had enough, Mom. I'm sorry that your life is so hard now, but I'm not running after rich boys. Eli really loved me, and I broke his heart." I ran out and headed straight to Eli's place. I knew he wouldn't want to have anything to do with me, but I had to apologize. And
Is she a flight attendant now?
That's what it looks
Oh, it's
like.
calm as a
but
thing.
no one answered the door, and the house still looked empty. Later that evening, I saw some news on the TV about a
You won
robbery
something?
at a big jewelry store in a nearby town. A policeman was proudly telling the news reporter that they had been looking for these thieves for years and had finally caught them. They were going to jail for a long time, and their teenage son would be sent to a foster home. I nearly fell off my chair in surprise when I
Is it
saw
Eli?
their faces on the TV. It was Eli's parents. I looked down at the ring on my finger. I was pretty sure now that it was a real diamond ring. I decided to focus on my studies and work really hard to make my life better for Mom and me. We moved away to another city so Dad wouldn't come around to make us miserable. Years later, I went on to become a flight attendant,
Oh,
a job I really loved. As I stopped at a cafe after a long flight, a waiter approached my table. "Nice ring.
Eli?
Must be one lucky guy." I looked up in shock when I heard that voice. It was Eli. He sat down next to me and took my hand. He said he had known all this time that his parents were criminals, but he wasn't sentenced because he was too young. He didn't want the same life for himself. He said softly, "You never sold the ring?" Teary-eyed, I said, "I couldn't." He smiled. "Are you ready to keep your promise?" I smiled back and said, "Yes, I am." He took out a small box from his coat pocket and placed it in front of me. Inside was a dazzling emerald ring. That kind of
Where
ring.
did you get that from working in the cafe?
I was pretty sure it was stolen.
Probably
but-
saved.
You heard what she said?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Wow.
That was
That's
really.
crazy.
I like that.
It was cool.
But unfortunately, life ain't really like that. So
Yeah.
I'll be
It
like.
was a beautiful autumn afternoon,
She
and I
said, "I
felt
was
my
pretty
way.
sure it was
Stolen.
stolen."
Can't trust them.
Can't trust them. But it wasn't really him, it was his
Yeah.
parents, you know? If I was him on the law, I was like, I didn't know they did that. What the heck? And I would have been like, yeah, I knew all along. Like,
Exactly.
But anyways, guys, that was funny. I really enjoyed that. Let us know what you guys thought about that down below. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.